Now these next three I've never grown before, but they just kind of caught my eye when I was ordering seeds. I like to grow at least one or two kind of yellow. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? I hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. It is Friday, January 27th here in South Georgia. Pretty chilly out here today, trying to let the sun warm me up a little bit, but I had to go put my flannel on so I could stay somewhat warm. Not a whole lot to do in the gardens today, but finally got all my seeds in the mail. So everything as far as warm seeds and stuff goes that we're going to be planting once spring rolls around, and I figured it'd be a great time to go through all these varieties we have chosen to grow. So in today's video, we're going to go through all these warm season selections here, vegetable by vegetable, talk about these different varieties. We've got some tried and true favorites in here that we grow seems like every year, but also got a good bit of new stuff that we've never tried before. And make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video where I'm going to talk about some of these heirloom varieties that we now have listed on our website. Now before we get started here, one thing to mention, I'm not going to talk about potato varieties because we've already mentioned that on another video. We went through all those varieties we ordered from Wood Prairie, showed you all those different varieties, so not going to cover potatoes here. And then as we work through all these different varieties, you'll notice that we've got a decent selection of hybrids and also a decent selection of heirlooms. Several videos ago, kind of went through an in-depth discussion of why we like hybrids for some vegetables and why we like heirlooms for others. And just to recap that real quick, like the things we like to grow hybrids of would be sweet corn, squash, cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, watermelon. Really prefer hybrids with those vegetables. And then the ones we kind of prefer heirlooms on would be field corn. We grow some heirloom tomatoes, pumpkins, okra, peas, and beans. Now let's dig into this box here, and we'll start out by talking about corn. So the variety of sweet corn we've decided to grow this year is called Eden. And this is really closely related to several other varieties of corn we have grown in the past. We really like the augmented super sweet corn types or sweet corn types just because they taste so great, have a nice crunch to them. We've grown Yellowstone, we've grown Solstice last year, which was a bicolor augmented super sweet, and this year we've chosen one called Eden, another augmented super sweet, but this is a white corn. Been a while since I've grown any white sweet corn, so I figured I'd give it a try. Expect really good performance out of it, just like we got with the Solstice last year, but just trying something a little different with white versus bicolor or yellow. So we usually plant our sweet corn first thing in the spring. As soon as it's warm enough to do so, we'll get those sweet corn seeds in the ground. Once they get up and going good, maybe a month or so later, that's when we usually plant some field corn. We grew some glass gem corn last year. We've also grown popcorn in the past, and kind of down on the glass gem corn. Just didn't do great for me last year. So I wanted a good field corn variety to grow so we can ground it up. We could also feed some to the chickens if we wanted. Looked around online, bunch of different places. I thought I was going to go with some of the green Oaxacan corn, but I ended up deciding on this one right here. I got it from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. It's called McCormick's Blue Giant. And what kind of triggered me to want to try this variety was the description of it. It said it's a cross between some heirloom blue corn variety, they didn't know which one, and Hickory King. I've grown Hickory King in the past, makes huge stalks, big old nice ears, and so I thought, well, this would be cool. This would be a blue corn that gets as big as Hickory King. So I got a whole pound of this McCormick's Blue Giant, and I can't wait to try this stuff. Now moving on from corn, let's talk about watermelons. If you've been following our channel for a while, you know we like to grow seedless watermelons, or at least try to grow seedless watermelons. We've gotten decent at it, still not excellent at it, but we've gotten okay at it. We get a decent amount of seedless production from our watermelon planting each year. We grew seedless red watermelons 2 years ago. Last year we grew seedless orange watermelons. Those were delicious. And this year I decided to try growing seedless yellow watermelons. So found a variety on Johnny's website called Tropical Sunshine. They said it was their best tasting yellow seedless watermelon, so I had to give it a try. And with a name like Tropical Sunshine, it's got to be good, right? Now they include the pollinator that you have to have when growing seedless watermelons. They include one called Ace in all the orders. Ace is not one you really want to eat from what I understand, so I always pick another pollinator, one that actually tastes good. I picked another yellow variety, so the seeded yellow variety we'll use as a pollinator is called Sureness. And this is a smaller kind of icebox type yellow watermelon. Kind of been leaning more towards the smaller watermelons lately, just because we can't always eat one of those real big ones. So it's nice just pop open one of those little ones, you know, eat it all and then give the rind to the chickens. After watermelons, we have our summer squash and zucchini. Now, as far as summer squash goes, I like growing yellow straight neck summer squash. Not a big fan of the old timey crook neck summer squash, just because there's not a whole lot you can eat in that crook neck, and it tends to break off a lot during harvesting or when you know, putting those fruits in a bucket. So I like the straight necks because of the size uniformity there, and they just hold up better during harvesting. I've grown a lot of different straight neck yellow squash varieties over the years. This year I went with a Grand Prize, which is one I believe I've grown before. Any of the yellow squash varieties with prize in the name are usually pretty good. So we got Grand Prize yellow squash that we're going to be planting. And then as far as the zucchini goes, I've been growing this one for a couple years, this hybrid Costata Romanesca type called Pantheon. And man, the texture and flavor on this Pantheon variety is really, really good. Now you can find heirloom Costata Romanesca varieties out there, but a couple years ago we did a side-by-side with Pantheon and just a basic open pollinated heirloom Costata Romanesca, and Pantheon blew it out the water. So growing Pantheon for the third year in a row, I believe, really, really like this variety. Now let's talk about cucumbers. We always grow a pickling cucumber and a slicing cucumber. Now my go-to pickling variety for several years has been one called Supremo. However, when I went to buy Supremo, Johnny said they were out of Supremo. It looked like they were going to be out of it for a while. So I said, I got to try to pick something else. So I found this variety called Excelsior, and it has a similar disease-resistant package to Supremo. One reason I like Supremo so much, it was productive, but it was also really, really disease resistant. So Excelsior had a similar disease resistance package, but Excelsior is also parthenocarpic, which means it doesn't need pollination. And those parthenocarpic varieties, from what we experienced last year with Corinto, are super, super productive. So I have high hopes for Excelsior. I really think it's going to do well for us. At least I hope it does. And then for the slicing variety, we're going with Corinto again. So we grew that for the first time last year and was just amazed at the production on those. We grew them on our arch panel trellis over there behind the barn. Just got loads and loads of slicing cucumbers. So we're going with that one again. That's another parthenocarpic variety. Doesn't require a pollinator. Now, we have some decent bee activity around here, so we can get good pollination if we need it. But these parthenocarpic varieties, from my experience, are just so much more productive than varieties that need pollination. Now let's get into the peppers and tomatoes, where we have lots of different varieties that we grow every year. We'll start out with the peppers. So the first one I have here is a hybrid Serrano variety. I like Serranos better than I do jalapenos, just a little bit better. The problem with Serranos is a lot of the varieties are kind of small, they're kind of a booger to pick, and they're not very big. So I found this hybrid variety on Johnny's site called Altiplano, not really sure how you pronounce that, but supposedly it makes a bigger, longer Serrano, so I'm excited about trying that one. Now the next variety is another one I haven't grown before called Massilia. Now there's a pretty big produce operation on the other side of the county, and they grow this type of pepper they call a finger hot. It's about a 10 to 12 inch long, kind of cayenne looking pepper, but it's bigger around than a cayenne. And I don't know what variety it is they grow, but they're pretty good peppers. And I wanted to try to find something similar to that, and I think Massilia is the closest thing I could find to it. So long cayenne, bigger around, and should be quite tasty if it's anything like those finger hots that the big guys grow over there. Now the only not hot pepper we're growing is one called King Arthur. This is a bell pepper variety. Grew this one 2 years ago. Was really impressed with it. Last year I tried one called X3R Anthem, something like that. That was supposed to be an improved version of King Arthur. Well, it wasn't improved in my opinion. So we're going back to King Arthur for our bell pepper variety. And then several more hot pepper varieties we have here. We've got the Santa Fe Grand, which is a go-to variety for me. Grow it every single year. Probably a little bit hotter than a jalapeno, but it's got some nice kind of citrusy flavors to it. Makes an awesome homemade hot sauce. Then a few more here. We've got some chocolate habaneros that I'll be growing for my buddy Mark, who makes all the wonderful hot sauces and stuff down the road. Got some chocolate ghost peppers that we're gonna try from Mark as well. And then we've got some more of these Pueblo chili pepper seeds. We grew some of those last year, really liked them. I think this is a variety called Mirasol. It's supposed to be a little hotter than the Pueblo we tried last year, but if it's anything close to those we grew last year, these are going to be really good. And now for everybody's favorite, which is usually tomatoes. Now, the last few years we've did some pretty extensive trials as far as determinate tomatoes go. But this year I'm dialing it back a little bit. Kind of got my favorites now. I'm just going to stick with what I know really does well for us. So we got Red Snapper, one we grow every single year, makes nice, big, good hybrid determinate tomatoes. And we've got Roadster, another good variety that makes some nice big tomatoes. Both of those have really hardy plants. They stand up to the heat and humidity and disease pressure down here, and they tend to be pretty dang productive. So those are the two hybrid determinate big tomatoes we're growing. Then I've got several indeterminate kind of heirloom varieties here. Got a variety called Rose. We grew that one last year. Really liked it. Really good flavor on it. We've got Paul Robeson here. We grew that one last year. I always like to grow at least one of these kind of darker, smoky flavored tomatoes, and I like Paul Robeson last year, so it's getting a spot in the garden again this year. Now these next three I've never grown before, but they just kind of caught my eye when I was ordering seeds. I like to grow at least one or two kind of yellow or orange tomato varieties, ones that have a little less acidity, just, you know, just have a little different flavor out there in the garden. So we've got one here called Amana, we've got one called Pineapple, and then this variety here is called Vintage Wine. It's supposed to be a brandy wine type, and I don't know, just like the way these look and said, hey, gotta try that. And then we've got a couple cherry varieties here. One we have grown before, one we haven't. So the one we grew last year we really liked was called Torringina, or Torringina, however you want to pronounce that. It's an orange cherry tomato, similar to Sun Gold, but I liked it a lot better than Sun Gold, and definitely growing that one again. This next one I got here is a kind of red to dark red cherry tomato variety called Edox, and once I saw the picture of this one, I just had to give it a try. It says it grows in nice big clusters, and it also has some really good disease resistance and even nematode resistance. So we'll have the orange Torringina, and then we'll have the red Edox as far as our cherry tomatoes go. Now next on the list would be pumpkins. Now usually what I do is devote an entire 30 by 35 plot to pumpkins, and I grow a C. machata type, a C. maxima type, and maybe even a C. pepo type. Usually grow 3 different varieties in one plot there, 3 different kinds of pumpkins. This year I don't think I'm going to do that. So the C. maxima types, the kabocha types, they taste really good, but I can't get them to store that well. So I'm going to stick with a tried and true C. machata variety that we've grown in the past. Not a very big pumpkin, but a productive pumpkin, got good disease resistance, and it stores super well. So we're going with Seminole pumpkin for most of our pumpkin planting this year. I'll tell you about a couple other varieties here in a minute, but I've grown the Seminole before. It always does well. Pumpkins aren't very big, but there's a lot to eat in one of those smaller pumpkins there, and sometimes you can get them to store for a year or more. So we're kind of going for storage this year as opposed to pretty pumpkins, and we'll be able to eat on these a long time. Now there are 2 other pumpkin or winter squash varieties that we'll be growing, which leads us into talking about some of these seeds we have available on our website now. So my buddy Ryan over at Heavenly Hills Homestead in West Virginia grows giant vegetables competitively. He enters these in competitions and stuff, and he's really got the hang of it. And he has supplied us with some seeds that we can make available to you guys. via our website. So the first one we have here is Atlantic Giant Pumpkin. Now these aren't your just average Atlantic Giant pumpkin seeds that you can buy from most any seed retailer online. These are seeds from big pumpkins. We're talking about 1,000-pound pumpkins. So these have the genes in them to get really big. So Ryan tells me that even if you don't know what you're doing, you never tried growing giant pumpkins before, you can easily grow one that's a couple hundred pounds. If you know what you're doing, you can get in that 500 to 1,000 or maybe even more pound range. And of course you don't really eat these things, but they're really fun to grow. I like growing them every year. It's fun for me and the kids to come out here and see how big that pumpkin's getting. So it's just something fun to grow, and these are really high quality seeds here. He says sometimes these seeds go from, you know, anywhere from $5 to $10 a piece, but he's made it affordable for us so we can carry them on our website and you can give them a try if you want. Another one we have on our website that came from Ryan is this giant butternut squash. So unlike the giant pumpkin that you probably don't want to eat, you can eat these giant butternut squash. So last year, I think maybe the last 2 years, Ryan has grown the world record giant butternut squash. I want to say it was around 80 pounds or so, maybe closer to 100 pounds. So these are seeds from those giants that he grew. And even if you're not doing all the things to try to grow a world record, he said these things average about 40 pounds a piece, and you'll get 8 or 9 of them per plant. And butternut squash typically store pretty well. So this would be a good food source in addition to something fun to grow. Just see how big a butternut squash you could grow. And I wasn't really going to talk about flower varieties on this video, but Ryan also supplied us with some giant sunflower seeds. Much like the Atlantic Giant Pumpkin seeds, these aren't your average giant sunflower seeds. These are offspring from giant sunflowers that he has grown competitively in his garden. Supposedly they make huge heads, like 2-foot wide heads. A lot of good sunflower seeds come from those. A lot of good surface area for pollinators to feed on these things. They get really tall and make some super giant heads. We grew a few of these last year. They're really fun to grow too. Now let's get into the Okra. And the 2 Okra varieties we'll be growing are 2 that we have listed on our website as well. So starting off, we've got the Ruiz Okra we've been growing the last 2 years. Really like that variety. We've got seeds saved from our own grow out here available on our website. So we'll definitely be doing a planting of Ruiz Okra. I think I'm going to wait and do my Ruiz planting in, say, late summer or maybe early fall like I did this past year. For my spring planting, I'm growing this dwarf cowhorn okra that we also have on our website. Now these seeds came from our friend Cajun B over in Louisiana. He swears by this variety. I grew a little bit of it last year, really liked it. It makes a smaller okra plant, but it's really productive, and the awesome thing about it is the pods stay tender even when they get about 10 to 12 inches long. So you can get a lot of okra pods off this plant that doesn't take up a whole lot of space. Really good variety for raised beds or containers, but also works good for an in-ground garden. So to get seeds for these 5 varieties that I mentioned are on our website. Just go to lazydogfarm.com. Under the shop tab, there's a little seeds tab there, and you'll see all 5 of them right there. And if you made it this far in the video, you might be thinking, well, you didn't talk about any beans or peas. Are you not growing any of those? Well, I don't think I'm going to grow any in the spring. We may turn around and grow some in the fall. But assessing my freezer stash, I've got a good bit of beans and peas in there from this past year or even the year before. So I don't think I need to grow any right now. I think we need to use what we have in the freezer. Now come fall, once we deplete that stash a little more, I'll probably need to grow some more. But I think I'm all right now, so I'm not gonna use any of my garden space this spring for beans and peas. Gonna save those for the fall. So that's what we're planning on growing, and as always, we'll be sure to do lots of videos planting this stuff, managing the plants as they grow, harvesting the produce from the plants, and kind of evaluating the varieties, whether we really like them or not. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and let me know in the comments below a few of the new varieties you're going to be trying in your backyard garden this year. You don't have to let me know all of them. You can if you want to. Let me know a few of the things that you're really excited about trying. And as always, you can find links in the description below to all of our affiliate partners. Got some coupon codes for some of those companies so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we have those seeds I mentioned. We've got our fig trees for sale now. We've got our garden blog, recipes, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell. By the beauty of your life,